I asked Susan, can you please share with us on a topic that I keep hearing over and over and over again, and that is people that are promoting uploading all the apps and all the things, whether they're promoting other supplement lines or not. Some are, some aren't, most are. And so it's like this thing about, hey, you upload your blood work and then it tells you everything you need to take, what you're deficient in, all the levels of all the stuff. And I'm just keep running into it over and over and over again. Anybody run into that out there? You're hearing that. So I asked Susan a few weeks ago, could you please bring some of your expertise and share kind of your perspective of what that's all about? And are blood tests really a solid, dependable way to know what we're deficient in? And so that's the context of the call. Thank you, Susan. I'll let you go ahead and take it away. Oh, you know what?
Got it.
Okay. Yep.
We're good. Okay.
All right.
Hi, everybody. You can see I'm in my nurse suit today, and not just for the talk. I'm actually at work on my lunch break, so it's good. They know not to call me. And if you hear any loud noises, it's because I work on a psychiatric unit where I've been for 22 years here, but I've been a nurse for 51 years. So still, I'm really officially retired. Our daughter, Stephanie, will appreciate that, because she said, why are you working so much if you're retired? But longer story. So here's the long title to this little talk, and I'm deliberately making it short so we can have time for questions. Should we neo-lifers use lab testing as a way to better promote our nutritional products, or should we use lab tests to determine nutrient levels and deficiencies? Okay, great questions. Until fairly recently, lab testing pretty much belonged mostly to the medical realm, and you hardly ever got it unless you went to your doctor, right? But now, as Alan said, you can order lab testing is a huge business, and you can even order your own labs if you want to, like if you don't want to go to a doctor, but you want to see what your own labs are, there are lots of websites. You can order your own, whatever you want to pay for. But with the rise of and we've got new tests all the time being developed. We've got home tests, more and more you can do on your own, and a literal explosion of what's called functional medicine. So lab testing for many people is becoming this big industry. So now it's very popular to test for nutrients as well, as Alan said, and it's running into us. So as we build our neo-life businesses and help our team, what should we do? Should we be doing testing for nutrient levels too? So that's the question today. And the simple answer is yes, maybe, and no. It's not a really simple answer. So let's just think of a stop and go light. We're going to talk about green, yellow, and red, or go, sure, slow, and no. So remember, always we say this, since most of us are not doctors or trained in something like functional diagnostic nutrition, we see FDNs coming up. We have to be super careful that we're not diagnosing, we're not prescribing, we're not treating, we're not curing anybody, because guess what? All those 4 words legally belong to the medical realm. Whoop, I mean, that's ridiculous, but they do. But we can use data, and this is what we're going to look at today. So first, the green light, go. What's a good reason to do it? If you or your client has blood work already done by the medical realm or whoever, it can be helpful if you know how to read it and use it. It can be dangerous if you don't, actually. So if you or they are planning to get some lab work, there's only 2 tests I like to ask people. Please add on if you want to, and if you want to pay for it, because insurance usually won't pay, but for a vitamin D level and a hemoglobin A1C. Vitamin D, why? Because almost everybody who does not supplement is low, and it will just be like, oh, I'm low, I should get out in the sun more, I should take some vitamin D. We have such a great vegan D. And secondly, the hemoglobin is called an A1C. This checks for pre-diabetes and diabetes. And other talks, we've talked about what a large percent of our people out everywhere have no idea that they're already pre-diabetic or even diabetic. And there's so much we can do. We can have other talks about this, but just with our glucose balance and a good adjustment of diet and activity lifestyle, people can go from pre-diabetic to not diabetic in actually a few months. So We have proof of that. We did our own little clinical study. But anyway, that's another thing. So hemoglobin A1C and vitamin D are valuable tests. And guess what? Both of them are tests that you can do at home. Also, if you're willing to stick your finger and get a few drops of blood out. So those are green light tests. Give us some good information that we can readily use. Another easy and inexpensive test you can do at home is to check your pH level of your body with pH strips. You can get these online. They're not expensive. They work on saliva and urine. And why would we do this? pH measures how acidic or alkaline our body is. And that changes daily according to our diet, our lifestyle, and stress, and actually sleep. So it's quite important for good health for our body to be the pH and to be in the neutral zone, right around 7, not too acidic, which is lower than 7, or alkaline, which is higher than 7, if we want to be in the best health. I personally check mine a couple times a week, and just to make sure I'm in the neutral zone, which I usually am. But if we get too acidic, and it's another, we could talk about this another time, but disease thrives in acidic pHs. I'm just going to say that much. So also another thing that's I like to use so much and is a BMI app. BMI, Body Mass Index app, free apps all over the place for your phone to help people understand what a good weight goal is for them. We're always encouraging people to get on the challenge, and people should have in their head a good weight goal for them. So this is not a lab test, but it's a measurement, and it's a good measurement. It's not perfect, and especially on super muscular people, it's not, but it's easy, it's free. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody who's definitely overweight, and their idea of a good weight for them is still way too much. But hey, that's a good first goal. And I don't discourage them. I say, whatever they say, that's less than what they are. I say, that's a good goal. Let's start trying to reach that goal. But then I want to show them in a picture, because it's a little chart with a little needle that goes to the good or the bad, that for their height and age, the good goal would be whatever the BMI chart says. So all those are the green light things. So vitamin D, hemoglobin A1C, pH, and the BMI chart. That's all the green light ones. Now we're going to go to yellow light, whoa, slow down, and when to use caution. If the person you're dealing with is a very anxious person, I don't recommend doing much with the labs, because as soon as they see that something's either slightly out of range, too high or too low, they start to freak out, even if it's a tiny 1/10 of a little something, which is most often insignificant, but it tends to frighten anxious people, increases their anxiety. And so I don't recommend it, using labs too much with those people. And so it's also, as Alan also already suggested, it's very important to be aware that many companies out there that are offering lab work, it is their stepping stone to offer their preferred supplements, not ours, but theirs. And so if you do go to those sites, you're going to be inviting a lot of unwanted competition by using these companies, because they're going to just show how their supplements are going to fix these problems. And then it's going to be hard to say, but guess what? Ours are better, etc. And some of them use a cycle of lab work supplements in a few months. You pay for more lab work and also a consultation. One older lady we know got really caught up with this. They did something called hair mineral analysis, and they took a little bit of her hair and they did something, and they showed her how supposedly her minerals were off, and then supplements. And so every few months they would do another test, and so you can see how this cycle would go. Did it help? I don't. Anyway, I say use caution with those type of websites. So finally, the red light to stop, and where I say do not get involved with lab testing, especially if our people that we're trying to help has been chronically ill, going from doctor to doctor, doctor to doctor with complex symptoms, and they're still not well, which is why they're coming to you. We know we can help these people so much. But if they're on a lot of medicines and they got a lot of complicated stuff, let's not complicate it further by looking for lab results. Often the people in this group also have burned through their resources, and they may not have much money to spend on anything, including supplements, or at least they think they don't. So the best thing with this pretty big group, right? I'm sorry, it's the majority of people maybe in this situation with chronic diseases, chronic conditions, that I say, let's just encourage them to do what we always do. Folks, clean up your diet, clean up your lifestyle, fill in the gaps with Pro Vitality at the least, or better breakfast solution, or if needed, weight loss solution. And let's start there, because so many people already get good results with our basics. And of course, if they need the digestive help, we really need to add the digestive help so they can get more goodness into them. And if they need to be pointed in a direction of a good diet, they're like, what should I do? The Mediterranean diet, which you can look up, very, very healthy and very balanced and full of vegetables and so forth. And just start there with these people and don't get caught up in their labs. Remember, we're not health professionals, most of us, and we're not going to diagnose, prescribe, treat, or cure, right? So even for me as a nurse, I don't want to play doctor on people like that. Oh, I don't want to play doctor with anybody because I like being a nurse, not a doctor. But I want to encourage every single person to take control of their own health to the best of their ability, because we can't make anybody do anything, right? So while I'm happy to sit down and look at their recent lab work, I wouldn't send them out to get any more tests. And also, and one more thing, this is a bit technical, but there are really two ranges of normals. Example, what you see on a standard medical test, that's called standard reference range. And it's usually not tight enough compared to an optimal range. So we're not going to talk about that. I'm just saying that somebody can have perfect lab work and still be really sick. And I'm talking about most of my patients here, mostly perfect lab work of what we test, but they're really sick and they're in here. So remember, we're just going to encourage them to make healthy changes in their diet and their lifestyle and fill in the gaps with our stuff. And if they worry about the price, let's remember what the great idea that Jamie gave us last Friday, the great advice. Do we believe in these Neolife products? Do we believe that they change people's lives? I do. I'm 22 years of evidence that Neolife products fix a lot of chronic stuff. And if so, then price should not be an issue very soon. For one thing, health, what's more important than our health? Not all the money in the world. And besides, as we all know, I think starting on the Pro Vitality, helping 3 friends get on it, or the breakfast solution, and very shortly we can get ours for free. So that's all I have until, if you have any questions, let's hear them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments before we open it up for questions. And I know there's other people that, may even want to be able to jump in and add some information to the conversation as well, like Lawrence Clark and others, and Marjorie or whoever else might be on the call. But one thing, so I love how I wrote some notes, but I love how I want to recap what I think I heard and understand first. And that is that you can get like a blood work, you can check, it can be good for checking your vitamin D levels. I know you said the hemoglobin A1C, our blood sugar, pH level can be done through a saliva test if someone wants to find out what that is, or urine, I think you said. You didn't say this, but I think they could also probably be helpful if someone wants to find out where's their hormone levels, like testing for like testosterone or things like that. And maybe others, I don't know. I'm a guy, so I just know when I got my full blood panel done recently, it shows testosterone levels. And I thought that was kind of cool to see how naturally, even a middle-aged guy like me, it can be very high just from, good nutrition and all that. But here's my question for you. Am I right though, in my belief that it's not going, that blood tests are unable to accurately, if at all, tell me my levels of the most important. I mean, not that vitamin D and these other things aren't very important, but even arguably even more important things like my essential fatty acid level of that something like treanin would provide, my carotenoid level. That's, again, these are basic products in the Pro Vitality, as we all know, hopefully on this call, but my carotenoid level, I'm thinking, what else is in the Pro Vitality? Omega-3 salmon oil. Is it going to be able to tell someone their omega-3 salmon oil levels in their body? Is it going to be able to tell them their 22 amino acid profile levels that we get from our Neolife shake? I'm just thinking about the breakfast solution and the weight loss solution. I'm like, just core nutrition 101. That it's like, that's a question. And on my last statement, before I turn it back to you to answer that, and then any other questions people have, go for it. But this is my thought, and I don't know if it's even right. It's like the research already shows people aren't getting what they need in their diet. It already shows they're not getting the omega-3s. They're not getting the 22 amino acids. They're not getting the carotenoids at their level they need. They're not getting the the treanin grain oil, the essential fatty acids. Why do I need a blood test to even find out if I'm getting it when I know I'm not, because nobody is? I know that's a separate point I'm making, but back to the question, can blood levels even determine accurately any of those things that we know are even arguably more important than things blood tests can test for?
Good, really great questions. So with treanin, I do not know of any test that will test for phytonutrients like that. Definitely there is a test that can test for adequate levels of omega-3s. I've never actually seen anyone do it, but I know there are tests like that. So that's one you could test, but you're right. Do they test for all the amino acids? Not usually. In our normal medical tests, we can test, are they getting enough protein in their diet? We can see that, but it won't say what they're missing. And then other things can be really confusing. Like, let's say you get your normal blood chemistry panel and it'll say your magnesium and your calcium, for example, are perfectly fine. Yeah. Where is the magnesium and calcium perfectly fine? In your blood. It was a blood sample. But guess what? Only about, well, less than 10% of your magnesium and calcium is sitting in the blood, probably a lot less. And the body does everything it can to keep that level in the blood stable. So if you're not getting enough magnesium or calcium, which a lot of people are not, and the body goes, hey, I'm a little bit low on magnesium today or calcium, but I know where to get some. I'm going to get some from your bones. And thank you very much. Bones, we'll put it back in the blood. And this happens day after day, especially in a body that's acidic. And little by little, osteoporosis and all that stuff that we don't want can start, but the blood level's going to look perfect all the time. So that's not a good indicator. That's not a good indicator to say, oh, my magnesium's fine. I don't need to take a magnesium supplement. Because most people are known to be, as you said, very low in magnesium and sometimes in, well, even if they're taking calcium, let's say somebody recently is taking Viactive. It's popular because it's like a chewy caramel or chocolate candy, and it's got some calcium in it, but how much calcium is going to get from her mouth to where she wants it in the body of that product? Very, very little. It's going to go elsewhere we don't want, where we don't want it to go, which is why our chelated minerals are so really wonderful, because they get where they're supposed to go, up to, as Dr. First says, up to 6 times more.
I'm so glad you brought up that point, because that's something I hadn't even thought about is, yeah, even the things you can measure in the blood is not always a great indicator of what's in the bones or what's in the muscle or what's in the whatever, wherever it may have pulled from. So that is really good. Do these blood tests people are getting, are they testing accurately for carotenoid levels?
I don't know of any that can do that. No.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's been machines that claim they can read skin and tell you in your hand and all this stuff, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about blood.
And when you put your hand on it, excuse me, but those are, I know this for a fact, they're programmed to your supplement line.
Yeah.
Okay. They don't even do that.
Yep. Absolutely. Any other questions anybody else might have? Susan, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I see we have about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any, Lawrence, you unmuted.
I was just going to say some of these things that are checking your genetics and everything. You just got to remember when they like what I've heard when like they have a big court case and they're using blood work, they get numerous, more than just one lab. What?
Lawrence, you got muted for some reason. Can you
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
you've heard when we
Sometime-
have court cases, that's where we
Yes.
lost you.
Okay, when they have court cases and they're going to use blood work in it, sometimes I used to hear, I don't know if it's changed, but they would get more than one lab doing the results because you always can have mistakes with people and machinery. So in other words, just one lab result wouldn't show you necessarily accurately because mistakes are made. So you'd have to have multiple. So I'm just saying that so people realize that.
That's absolutely right. If you ever get a lab that's way out of whack on yourself or anybody, just don't even until you get it confirmed. Like Lawrence said, don't even get excited.
That's awesome. That's good. Good word. Was I see Jim or Kate. I don't know who it is. Jim and Kate have their hand up. Go ahead, Jim or Kate. Jim.
Anyway, my question was, you know, I went in one time and my urologist got all upset because my calcium was so high and really got on me with that because because I was a kidney stone former and told me I had to lower that. And so, I'm just curious if you have any input on it, not asking for a diagnostic, but just what's your thoughts on that? So.
Okay, good question. True, kidney stones can form from calcium, but lots of other things too. And secondly, like Lawrence and I already said, I would double check that level and see why was it high that particular day. We don't know, maybe, but you're going to see more and more. There's been a pendulum swing now to the used to take lots of calcium, and now people are getting in trouble because they're taking poor forms of calcium. So now I've run into doctors saying, stop taking all calcium. So just because people are taking the wrong kind of calcium and they are running into some trouble.
That was something Dr. Arthur First or Dr. Miller talked about was the limestone calcium you get at Costco actually forms bone spurs and all kinds of other issues because it's not being assimilated into the body and utilized by the body. And that's why our double amino chelation is so powerful for absorption and getting it where it needs to go and not forming those kidney stones and not forming those bone spurs and whatnot.
Yes, very good.
Julie, awesome stuff, guys. Julie and then Scott. I see your hands up.
Okay, I had to unmute. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood that you said that you had the go, the slow, and the stop. And so I think I'm good. I think we're good on the goes. But the stop, Susan, was these, you said these tests that are just curtailed around or, targeted at take this test because our supplements are going to fix it. Is that what you kind of said?
I put that one on the slow. Just be careful because they're going to recommend their brand and it'll be harder to say, you should take our brand because they'll go, well, the test said their brand and we could lose customers, really could. But on the stop, it's more for complicated people, really complex, lots of medications, chronically ill. Let's just start with their lifestyle and our basics.
Okay, that's what I put in my notes. I just want to make sure. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure I heard you kind of slip in a little bit, kind of quick. And I think Kate and Marjorie verified this for me too. But did you say that that magnesium levels really have some, or the high acidity in the bloodstream can have something to do with dizziness?
No, and I didn't say dizziness at all.
Oh, sorry.
High acidity, which is low pH. Remember, 7's neutral, less than 7 goes towards acid.
Okay.
More goes toward alkaline. We want to be right around 6.5 to 7.5, very narrow around neutral. But when we're low and acidic, it disease,
Disease.
not dizziness. Good.
No, I thought you said disease. Okay.
Disease in
Okay.
general and cancer
Okay.
in specific loves an acidic body.
Environment. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anything I can find out on dizziness? Because I've had vertigo issues. So I perked up and I was like, did she say dizziness?
Oh.
But okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, Neolife's been helping me a lot with that, just FYI. So
Great.
Awesome. Julie, search, you probably have already seen it, but search vertigo in the Healthy Living group. And there's a phenomenal story in there that Nicole
Yeah.
experienced with a lady. We have got like no time left. So let's move quickly through Scott and Lawrence and call it a wrap. Scott, you're up.
Just a comment first off, then I'll go with my question. With the products, I went from A1C of 6.3 to 5.4 and stayed there.
Woo.
And then my question is, you were talking about the person that really pays attention to the labs and stuff. How do you talk to them? Because our son-in-law is exactly the person you were talking about.
We'll have to too long of an answer, but basically it's the trends. I do talk to people about labs a lot, actually. And but one set of labs, is not that significant. Let's see, what is the trend over time? Are you going up or down? Are you getting better or are you getting worse? So we can start with one set of labs, but then let's, make a plan to ensure that the next set of labs is looking better in all areas.
Great advice. I like that.
Thank you.
Lawrence, we'll let you close it out. I know Susan's on her lunch break and want to just respect everyone's time. So thank you so much, Susan. This has been awesome. Lawrence, go ahead.
I just want to say there have been companies and individuals using machinery, using aereology, using kinesiology that have ripped off a lot of people. And I just want to warn people about that.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying everybody that does those things I just mentioned are bad and don't have anything to offer. I am not saying that. I'm just
Right.
telling you, I've been in this industry for a long time. And people will do blood work under a microscope and tell you all these things. I've seen them manipulate. There's some people that are honestly telling people wrong things that they've been convinced by. I remember a Christian chiropractor that I met at a medical convention that paid a fortune to study under the top person in that industry. And he told me, he said, I'd love to tell you it's the truth, that those prognostic things they're telling you is true, but they're not true. So I'm just wanting to give that caution out there so people don't waste their money.
Appreciate
Yes,
that, Lawrence.
that's so right. And in the comments, I'm just looking at them. Lee mentioned, yes, of course, we have a blood test that can measure the carotenoids because it was done in the study of our carotenoid study. But as he said, I think I remember hearing that was like $1 million study. So not normally are you going to get a test for carotenoids in your blood. So but it can be done because it has been done by us, by the people who did that study. Yes.
Good point. But not probably very good chance, not the studies that people are uploading to an app to be sold somebody else's product line is, I think, your point. And here's a simple way to confirm. When you have the prospect that tells you they've got their blood work and this other company is recommending their products, here's my thought. Wonderful. What was your level of your training grain oil? What was your level of carotenoids? What was your level of omega-3s in all 8 of the omega-3s? And what was your level of the 22 amino acids? Let's see it. Let's take a look at it. That would be my response.
Yes, that's good.
Dwight?
And Julie asked, what was a good A1C level? Less than 5.5 or 5.4 is great. Anything under 5.4, good A1C, because that's a measure of about the last 3 months of your average blood sugar. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Alan, all I was going to add was the carotenoid testing. There was a company that was supposedly testing carotenoid by putting a thing on your finger. And when I checked into it, it wouldn't differentiate between synthetic and natural. And it, like you said, it wouldn't tell you the full spectrum. It was just beta carotene they were testing. They weren't testing any of the other carotenoids that we have the full spectrum of. It wasn't even checking what's in your bloodstream. It wasn't checking any of that. But the funny part is he put it on my finger and I bleeped out his machine. He couldn't believe how many carotenoids I had. It blew his mind. And that was just the beta carotene. That was just the beta carotene. So a lot of these, like you said, Lawrence, ditto, a lot of these machines are designed to move their particular product, and they're not necessarily testing the right things. And they're not testing, like you said, Alan, the full spectrum of nutrients within like all 8 parts of salmon oil or the full spectrum of carotenoids. They're just testing for one thing, and they can't identify whether it's synthetic or natural. So it's kind of, to me, it's kind of a useless data, honestly.
Very good.
And I comment, if you don't mind. Okay,
Marjorie.
when you do your urine pH, if it's too low, people don't need to freak out. Generally, just eat more vegetables.
Yes,
And then
yes.
now if I have one kidney, so not always just eating more vegetables solves it for me. And I almost don't want to tell you what I do, but I just have a tiny bit of baking soda first thing in the morning. Dr. Lawson talked to me about that years ago, but you're not supposed to just go around drinking tons of baking soda. I mean, I don't think you should probably take more than 1/4 of a teaspoon. And even then you ought to confirm that you have a low pH in a reasonable way. And the other thing, as far as like a high calcium in bloodstream, I think a lot of times I'm not saying I'm an expert in this at all, but you can change your blood work from one day to the next just by how much water you drink. If you went into blood work dehydrated, you might have higher levels of some things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because as far as kidney stones, a lot of times kidney stone issues come from somebody who doesn't drink enough water. Jim, I'm not putting you in a box for that.
Marjorie, you're really right about that dehydration, because usually before blood work, they say, don't eat after midnight. And so people don't drink or eat. But if I'm going to have blood work done, I'm going to drink water. I may not eat, but drink water. So, because if you are dehydrated, it's going to skew a lot of things.
I had Dr. Lawson tell me once that if people were going to, like, they have to have their cholesterol levels at a certain place for work insurance or whatever, that if they would fast the day before, automatically in 24 hours, cholesterol lowers. So
That's
just what you eat really makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Adams, I have a friend who suffers from migraines and headaches constantly, and they have good blood work. Is there something that they should be testing for else, or what is some good advice that you can share with us?
Migraines, be sure they're hydrated, really hydrated. Most don't drink enough. Magnesium, super important. CoQ10, super important. Omega-3s, super important. And they may need some chiropractic care. Maybe there's a nerve or something pinched in their back that could fix the whole thing, maybe. But those are the 4 things I would start with: water, magnesium, CoQ10, salmon oil, and check
Blood
their
sugar levels.
and blood. Okay, it could be. Yeah. Yes.
Great.
And
Thank you so much.
I've found Trey has helped some people with bad headaches.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And that's on the Wisdom Builders. You can find good testimonies on migraines. We have a lot of testimonies.
Awesome. Hey, we could go all day. This is so good. Thank you so much, Susan. I appreciate all your insight and everyone else that chimed in and added to the conversation. I love what you commented too, Jamie, and in the comments. Health is about how you feel as well. I mean, that is another part of the equation. It's one piece of the equation. Some people feel great and they're just deficient and they just haven't got the effects of it yet, but how you feel matters. People think they're doing all this and that, and they feel like junk. It's like, well, if it's not working, I love asking people, how's it working for you? Not sarcastically, like genuinely,
Yes.
like, oh yeah, you don't do this, that, or the other ingredient in our products because you want that. Well, how's that working for you? Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. How about trying something different, right? In a loving, caring way. I know that sounds kind of sarcastic. I don't say it that way. That doesn't work. Anyway, thank you again, Susan. Have a great rest of your day. We'll look forward to seeing everyone back here next week for Wisdom Weekly. You want to?
Yeah, one more thing. Julie asked also, is there nutrient specific testing? Oh, there's tons of it. And you can start paying $100, $200, $400, $600, $1,000. You can get all the tests that you ever did want if you want to pay for it. So it's out there for sure, but comes with the cautions that we already talked about.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, you too. Bye.